Okay. Oh, there's a lot of people in here. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to continue on this business trend. Sorry, guys, I know this is a very technical audience, but I'm going to follow up on Alan's notes and continue kind of stuck to business as well. So I'm going to address startups and telecoms, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. A lot of people here have started a company in telecoms. Can I get a show of hands? Who started a company here? A lot, like a lot of people, right? So that's good. That's great. So just a quick intro about myself. I've been starting companies since a very, very young age. 20 years old, my first company. Last company, so I've built and exited 4 companies by now. Last company is the most significant, GoContact. We started a contact center platform back in 2012 when it was actually cool to do it. And we've grown that company here in Portugal and then eventually into Spain, into a couple of countries in Africa and South America as well. We got purchased by Broadvoice, an American company, back in 2021. And we're a fully integrated group now. I act as a CTO for Broadvoice. And, you know, contrary to all belief, this has actually been a very good experience. So I think we're lucky. So right now I'm acting as well as an investor and a mentor in the local ecosystem. Lisbon is very hot for technology. I haven't mentioned before, but Aveiro is actually the leading city in Europe for telecoms and one of the leading in Europe. So the university here is a huge reference across Europe for telecoms. A lot of good stuff has came out of this school and the people around it. So first of all, you know, starting with starting a company in telecoms. My first advice is you shouldn't really do it. Okay, so let's get it out there. Like if you're thinking about that, going a second time or the first time, you shouldn't do it. That's not a way to go. Why? You know, real-time applications actually suck. You know, for a company, if you're a business owner, you're going to be up a lot of nights. There's a lot of pressure from the customers. You know, SLAs to keep up, uptime, system pressure. If you actually hit a home run, it becomes even worse, right? Because now you have to scale it. You know, people are accustomed of having 100% uptime across the world, very low latencies, like all of that is kind of a given today, right? But what customers don't know is that it takes a lot of work to make that happen, right? And so it's not exactly the best space. Actually, what we found over time is that our customer business will depend on your technology. And especially in contact center, this is so true. Like, we can't afford to be a minute down, basically. That's it. And even if you go down to simpler use cases, like sending SMS, a lot of businesses depend on sending SMS, right? If they can't send an SMS, they're going to have an impact. That's it. And they're going to call you, you know, they call you names as well. So, you know, it's a hard business. It's too crowded, and a lot of what Alan was pointing on the M&A, on the consolidation, points exactly into that. There's a lot of money, but there's a lot of companies as well. There's a lot of competition, and some of the big boys are trying to, you know, buy as much as they can, and then figure out later what to do with them. You know, that's one of the strategies. Not exactly the highest margins, to be honest. Even in like contact center space where you feel like you are adding a lot of value, so it's an enterprise solution, the competition is driving the margins down. And there's a lot of companies out there willing to lose money year over year and just get the deals, right? So yeah, the space is, if you're top of the food chain, I think it's a good space, but overall for a small company it's very hard, and you're probably going to be competing on price. So just a last remark, you know, I just been to the Web Summit. I don't know if anyone here been to the Web Summit last week? No? You should have. It's really nice. So anyway, I walk in, it's like 80% is the metaverse, like Web3, crypto, metaverse things. Like everyone is selling hot air at this point. And I was trying, you know, maybe something can come out of that, but for now it's hard. And I was trying to find telecoms, you know, in there, and actually I looked and I couldn't find any significant, like I would say, okay, so this is a telecom use case, for Web3, let's say. No, it's a lot of coins. It's a lot of JPEGs of monkeys, and that's it. So it is what it is. But it was funny to see that 3 years back, I think the biggest theme under Web Summit was enterprise applications and AI. That was the two main themes. This year was all about Web3. Like, that was it. There wasn't, everything else was just landscape, basically. Okay, so, but if you really want to do this, my PowerPoint doesn't. Yeah, it broke. Okay. Let's try it like this. Well, I think I'm done. Well, let's do it. I think it's because of the screen resolution. It's just too big.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's do it like this. Okay, so, but if you really want to do it, the first thing I want to point out is that telecoms actually changed the world, right? You can think of a world before telecoms and after telecoms, and these are two different worlds, right? To me, it's probably alongside with transportation, healthcare, it's probably the single biggest driver of productivity. And you can look at COVID as a way to exemplify that, because it creates a contrast, right? I think we take telecoms for granted in our daily lives now, and that's good because it means it works, it's available, we can do stuff with it. But if you look at something like COVID, and if you think of a world without telecoms and COVID at the same time, it would be just crazy, right? We would come to a complete halt. To me, it's still kind of cool, in a hacky way. Like, I feel like whenever I'm around you guys and in other venues, there's a lot of hacker mindset in this, and I still like it because a lot of the things I see as a CTO now is we'll use this API and that API and the other API, and I'm like, okay, so can we get a level deeper? And the answer is usually no, we don't understand that. So it's still a bunch of guys and gals trying to really have their screen always black, and that's good, right? So you can do it B2B or B2C, but actually just do B2B. Don't do B2C at all. That's too hard. But it really serves both ends. And looking at for example, WhatsApp, their initial business model. I don't know if a lot of people might not be aware of this, but when WhatsApp launched, you would actually pay $1 per year as a fee, right? And that's like a B2C strategy where just make it as cheap as possible and scale, but you have to have the horsepower behind it. B2B is actually the best space to do it, and that goes for all businesses, not just telecom, of course. So you got plenty of choice if you want to start a company here. First of all is a platform as a service, and we saw that with Twilio and other companies. I think we always default back to Twilio, but there was guys doing that before them, and there's guys after as well. But it's just a name. So you can think of just enabling telecoms. That's one layer. And then you have service enablers where you actually start to add some of a business logic to it, like an SMS gateway, for example. Then you have business use case where you go into UCaaS and CCaaS. That's what we do with Broadvoice. Is we play both of those markets with platforms, right? Then you have what's most common now. It's fully integrated solutions. You're deploying cloud. You're deploying telecoms, and you're deploying the business use case, CCaaS, UCaaS, and others, right? And the customer looks to you, and what I hear a lot, I don't like when they say this, but what I hear a lot is, I only want one neck to choke, right? And usually it's my neck. So, but it is an advantage. You go in and you say, look, you don't have to worry about cloud or telecoms or the platform will do all of that for you, right? And you can add value in that way. And then you have all of these satellites out there, like there's a bunch of startups just playing around telecoms, right? Speech analytics, for example, is very big at the moment, but there's very specific things that are still a satellite. For example, workforce management in contact center. It's a satellite for telecoms. It is. quality assurance. There's a bunch of things you can do in the ecosystem that a lot of the main platform providers are not focused on. They can compete, and there's a lot of possibilities of bolt-ons, right? With API marketplaces and all of that, you can create that synergy and just add value to existing platforms. Okay, so what are the biggest challenges actually? Well, the first challenge is finding customers, right? It's, I think especially in this room where everyone is super technical, I think this is where everyone gets stuck. Like, I have this great idea, I'm, like the smartest guy in the room, but I can't find customers. How do I do that, right? So I think that's the first challenge with any company, and specifically with a telecom startup, where usually you're pointing to a mid market or an enterprise market. It's very hard to find customers, especially if you don't have a brand, right? So, we did a bunch of things from the beginning here in Portugal, just to get started with customers. And the first one was like, look at us, we're a small Portuguese startup, please, kind of fund us, right? Give us our business. So the second right now is hiring developers. I think, who's struggling with hiring developers here? It's if you're planning on growing, this is probably the biggest challenge right now. It's it's both from an availability perspective and from a cost perspective. Both of them are very you're going to struggle with both. And by the way, everyone out there is saying Portugal is a great place to hire developers. It is not. Get away. Okay, so go to your own countries. Like, do not come here. This is bad. Like, people don't show up for work. We have too many holidays. I think we have like 35 paid vacation days a year. So it's bad. Don't come here. So the fourth would be scaling technology. This has become a lot easier. If you stand on shoulders of giants. If you start like we did, that is, you get open source out of the shelf, you got a long way ahead before you can actually start to do some big projects, right? If open source out of the shelf is nice, but it doesn't scale. So you're going to, be in for a lot of surprises. But if you actually lean on some of the technologies out there to start your business, right? You can always in the future, you can always revisit those decisions. But if the goal is to prove that you have a business model, that you have a product, just lean on other stuff that is already available in the cloud. You can use those APIs, prove your point, and then eventually swap out the engine beneath, right? So security is becoming front and center for us, especially as we grow. We are aware, and I think it was last year or 2 years ago, there was a big raid on VoIP companies. I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, but that's still going on, right? There's a lot of attacks focused on VoIP service providers. I think the guys that are trying to hit us understood that we can't be down, we can't afford that, right? So there's bandwidth attacks basically and garbage attacks, right? A lot of the concerns we have are not simple, oh, you got hacked, or there's a ransomware, whatever it is. It's massive attacks of a lot of hundreds of gigabytes per second hitting our networks, right? Because that's going to take the audio quality down. It's going to break all of the ongoing calls, and all of that. So security is becoming harder in our space, and there's some vendors out there. Cloudflare, for example, is one of the ones we use that can help with that. But it's going to impact your budgets, and it's still going to be a mess anyway, right? It's just not as bad as of an option, but it's still bad. So competitors, once again, this is a pretty crowded space, and what we feel at the moment is that we're not a big company. Broadvoice, from American standards, we're a medium-sized company, but we have, RingCentral, for example, is competing with us across the board in all of the deals. Like we try to go, into smaller space, they're there. We try to go up market, they're there. Thanks. You know, that's true for RingCentral, for other guys as well. We see a lot of movements in this space, like, you know, Zoom says now they have a contact center, right? And our sales guys, they start to panic because now we're competing with Zoom, right? We're not in the same ballpark from a feature perspective, but there's a lot of competitors out there that, you know, they have the brand and they start to move into the space, like Google now has a contact center option as well, right? I don't even know how that works, but Amazon has one as well. So you see these big companies, they put out these names out there, they say they can do it, and that's enough to create a lot of you know, noise in the space, let's say. You know, in the end, scaling the company, Telecoms is still very hands-on. You know, with I think it was you mentioned RingCentral trying to bring this partner program to place. It's still very hands-on. There's a lot of hand-holding in this space. You know, some models like Twilio, for example, are very you self-consume. There's very developer-oriented. But when they move into something like, for example, Flex, then they start to get in the space where, you know, you're going to be front and center with the customer. You're going to have a project phase. You're going to have a deployment phase, and you know, customer service will be very important and all of that. So scaling a company like this is also hard because it's very manpower intensive. Okay, so where should you start? First of all, you should start with a problem. A lot of people ask me this, especially technical founders, like, you know, what do I do to start a company? And I'm like, find a problem. That's it, right? And usually, especially technical founders, they first have ideas and then go find problems they can solve with their idea. That's the wrong way to do it. Okay, so first of all, find a problem. And there's, you know, there's basically, to me, there's three kinds of problems in the world. There's your problems, there's your wife's problems, and then there's the rest of the world's problems. Okay, and only the first two categories are actually very good, because if you have a problem that is your problem, then you understand that problem, right? If it's your wife's problem, you're going to understand that problem as well, and you're going to be, you know, you're going to need to solve it faster probably. And so the basic idea is you need to be able to live with your problem while you build your company. Okay, so, and that actually happened with us at GoContact as well. You know, the first customer, we were in the customer developing code, basically. You know, we had that access, and that daily engagement, like understanding what they need, and you know, the founder vision for the problem solution mix as well. That is all very important. Like, if you don't have a direct access to the problem, you shouldn't be starting a company, to be honest, right? So as soon as you have a problem and, you know, you can solve that problem, the first thing you need to make sure is, you know, the solution is replicable. And then it's as easy as go find other people with the same problem. Like, look at your first customer and figure out, you know, who are his competitors, and then begin to play with variations of that as you expand, right? You know, in the Web Summit last week, I was a mentor there, and there was a group of startups, and they were dealing with growth issues, right? So the topic was growth. And the average employee number was like 3 guys. Like, so they were very, very early, right? And their mindset, like 90% of the people there, their mindset was, I'm going to create this generic solution that can solve all of the problems of the industry I'm targeting, right? That's exactly the wrong mindset. Like, just solve one thing, be very, very good at that, and then add on and add. If you want to, like, because you can either add on features and solutions, let's say, or you can go solve that problem somewhere else, like in another country, or, you know, just go up market, whatever you want to do, right? Just a couple of recommendations, books recommendations as well. I love Eric Rice, The Lean Startup. This is kind of a staple. Probably a lot of people in here read this before, but you know, very, very useful advice for how to test a solution to a problem, basically, right? And how to iterate fast. And this is kind of a manifest by now, you know, in the startup world. The other one I really like is the Sales Acceleration Formula, and this is a sales book for engineers, okay? And so that's the trick here. This guy, Mark Roberge, he was one of the founders of HubSpot. And so what he did at HubSpot was basically redefine the book on inbound selling. And inbound selling is basically, you get engineering and product out there to capture revenue, right? So from an engineering perspective, this is a very good book on sales, right? And it will help you, go up until the point you can actually start selling. Another good tip is MicroConf. Who here is aware of MicroConf? No one knows MicroConf? So MicroConf, it's kind of like the TADSummit for starting businesses. Is the no BS version of this. Okay, so MicroConf is focused on non-VC starting a business, so bootstrapped. Okay, so a lot of down-to-earth examples in there. They have this huge YouTube video list. Actually, next week it's going to be MicroConf Europe in Malta. So they have a yearly get-together as well. But just go through their YouTube list. There's a lot of good talks there. There's a particular one. The guy's name is Jason Cohen, founder of WP Engine. He grew that company just hosting WordPress sites, but he grew that company from 0 to 100 million in revenue, fully bootstrapped. So he knows what he's doing. There's an excellent talk in there from him. So just to give you a crazy idea, what about starting a company? Should you buy a company? Okay, and this is something I've been floating around a lot of people, and people kind of look at me like, what? I don't even have money to start a company, right? Let alone buy a company. Actually, this is a very good strategy. First of all, you're going to skip the startup phase. That's the graveyard. You're going to jump over the graveyard, right? You can find something that already has revenue, customers, and a profit, right? And you can expand on that. Second, there's a lot of good SMB companies out there, like small companies doing $1 million, $2 million, and their founders are either old or they ran out of ideas. They're comfortable now, right? So you can pick those up. Especially in telecom, if you think about 20 years back, a lot of companies were booming in telecom, just selling phones, right? Putting phones on desks, right? A lot of those companies are still around. They're still maintaining that. You can definitely go in, pick up the customer base, and start selling cloud stuff to them, right? So you can use these service providers as a springboard to the next layer of business. The big retirement is already happening. I don't know if you guys are aware, but more than 80% of small businesses in Europe are owned by people that have more than 60 years. And they don't have a succession plan. They're trying to pitch their company to their kids, and their kids only want to do TikToks. That's it, right? So it actually is a big problem, because they're going to close the company down, basically. That's what's going to happen. Or they're going to sell it to some guy that doesn't care. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for the next 10 years, not only in Europe, United States. I think it's even worse from that perspective, where there's a generation that can come in with business knowledge, with ideas, and actually take these companies to the next level. And by the way, you can do it without having to put your own money down. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's across Europe and the United States right now in place funds secured by governments that will finance 90% of an acquisition on a very low interest rate, right? And these are, even in Portugal you have this. You can do this up to 4 million of revenue. You can have 90% of that financed. The other 10% can come from the seller. Like you say, I'm going to pay you in a year or 2 years, right? It's kind of an earn-out. And you can, if it's a profitable business, you can have the business pay the loan and pay the seller, and you did it without cash. You just need to believe in yourself that you're not going to screw up or you're going to lose your house. That's it. So 2 good suggestions on this. Buy then build. It's a great book on how to buy and then scale a small company. And the Harvard Business Review Guide to buying a small business. Harvard and Stanford now both have a course they called Acquisition Entrepreneurship, where they teach their graduates just to do this. Find a small company that has 10, 15, 20 years of history, solid track record, and then scale it 10 times, right, with a startup mindset. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much. If anyone has any questions, happy to take them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. For the sake of time, let's move on to the next session. Okay. Apologize.
We have a question.
Just quickly.
Just quickly,
Yeah.
the conclusion you drew, don't start a startup in telecom. How does that conclusion change with the buy then build?
Well, I think, in any industry, from a safety perspective, it's a lot easier to buy and build. Okay, so what statistics show is that the survival rate is a lot higher. Like the buy then build model has a survival rate of over 80%, while the startup model has a survival rate after 5 years of about 8%. So that's the conclusion, right? But on the other hand, you're going to have a lot, if your goal is to exit the company at a higher valuation, you're going to have a lot of time convincing investors that a 20-year-old company that just started to grow recently is worth a multiple on revenue. While a startup is really easy. If you do $1 million, you can just ask for 15 times revenue. Why not, right? And so that's the difference. If you're in it for the long term, I think buy then build is the way. If you're in it for the casino, I think startup might be better for that. But it's a personal choice in the end of the day as well.
Okay.
Okay.
That's great.